The Hornets continue their losing streak, but it feels like a win compared to the other games that they lost recently. Mark Williams, wild start, better finish, better game than what the start was. We'll get into all of it. Plus, we'll rummage through the Sicko Satchel today. Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. There is a drumming Doug Branson. You can find him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can text him, and you can find the text information in our show notes. Plus, he's hosting Locked On NBA with Matt Moore and Hayes. If you hear the crackling, then that means you hear Doug Branson going full Steve Clifford with candy in his mouth. He needs it because he's sick and he's tired, just like Steve Clifford. He was sick and tired. Doug Branson sick and tired. Both of them have candy in the mouth.
I've been out this week. I've been on injury management. I'm like a lot of the Hornet star players right now. I'm just barely getting through the end of this season. I did a podcast with our guy, Evan Hale. Go check that out.
Super Hornet.
The Super Hornet.
Shout
I did
out.
his podcast. It was a great episode, except for the fact that in the middle of the recording, I had to like literally step away and like hack up my lungs and then come back. Luckily, Evan, good at editing. He edited all that out, so you don't have to listen to that. But, yeah, it was a great episode. Okay,
Super Hornet, Evan Hale. Yeah, I got to meet him. I got to meet him in his cowboy hat and his cape at the Spectrum Center. When I saw it, that's exactly what I want. I want my Hornet fan. When I picture Super Hornet, I want him to wear a cape and a cowboy hat and a Moussa Diabate jersey. Great stuff. Shout out, Evan. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. There was a good bit to cheer for yesterday if you're Super Hornet or you're just a regular Hornet fan. They lose to the Mavericks 103-96. You can joke about, Walker, why are we celebrating a loss? It's an L is an L. Not really anymore. Nope. because it's embarrassing doesn't make it any less true that this is better than what we've been experiencing the last 3 games and the last 4 if you wanted to throw the Denver matchup in there. There was a chance to win this game. Again, they only lost by single digits. Mark Williams had 26 points, 16 rebounds. He went 6 of 7 from the free throw line. There was Miles Bridges, not a great shooting night, did end up with 20. We can get to the box score and all of that, but it did feel like this was a team that did come out ready to play on the road, last game of a road trip. Maybe Mark didn't come out ready to play, but then he got ready, right? He did get ready to play. What were your thoughts on the close loss to the Dallas Mavericks?
The Charlotte Hornets were competitive throughout this game. They didn't take a quarter off. You know, there were sections of this game where the Mavericks went on runs, but the Hornets were competitive, and that's all I think that any of us want from them right now. And I honestly think it's all that we can ask from this team right now, which is don't make me feel abject shame. That's the bar. It's seemingly an easy bar to clear, but they haven't been able to do it. I mean,
right.
you talk about celebrating a loss. Look, they've been getting smoked by 30 points a game. So, like, if you look at this...
Doug, I'm sorry, I have to stop you. They've been losing games on average by 43.
I'm sorry.
To say 30, 36 is their best performance of the last 3. They've been losing on average by 43 points per game. Continue.
So a 7-point loss really is like a 30-point win. I mean, that's how we have to view these things. That's the way we're forced to view these things. There were cool moments in this game. You talk about Mark Williams. Yeah. I think that there are going to be some people listening, maybe even people listening to this show, who did not check this game out, and they look at the box score and they go, wow, Mark Williams leading in game score, 10 of 18 from the field, 26 points, 16 rebounds. I just need you to understand that he had one of the worst starts to a game that I've seen from Mark and that maybe I've seen from a center in a very long time. 13 seconds into this game, he has a foul in transition where he just touches a guy's arm for no reason. There was absolutely no reason to do it. I don't understand it. I'll never understand it. And then quickly I thought in my head when he picked up the first foul, I'm like, there's no way. There's no way he's going to pick up a quick second foul. And like 2 possessions later, bad screen, second foul. And he was all over the place. I think we take for granted players that have control of their game until we see a player just absolutely flailing out there. He looked Kai Jones-esque during his first run. He sits on the bench. I joked in the Every Hornets box score chat. I said, I think Jeff Peterson is sending someone down there to tell him, hey, if you don't step it up, we're going to trade you to Greensboro. And guess what? He got off the bench and he stepped the bleep up. I saw him with a different energy, a different focus. He put shoulders into Moses Brown. Now, we have to be fair here. Like, Moses Brown literally signed with the Dallas Mavericks like a day ago. He's a 10-dayer. And so, tough matchup there for Moses Brown. But Mark Williams, he took advantage of that matchup, and he looked really, really good.
Yeah, I think if we want to just camp out and talk about Mark Williams for a second. So there were still plenty of issues. I don't want to say that. There were still issues throughout the game with Mark. It was a terrible start. But also, Doug, what he did was he gave you something to argue about if you're a fan of Mark, which for somebody like me who really liked Mark, I didn't have a leg to stand on for quite some time. 31 minutes for Mark Williams, 26 points, 16 rebounds. I'll just mention the stats again, okay? You go back to each of the last 3 games, Golden State, Portland, LA. I think the game against the Lakers, I think he did a better job contesting shots out on the perimeter because remember, at that time, the last game we had seen him play was Milwaukee, where he was just letting Brook Lopez take whatever shot he wanted to. And it's Brook. He's not going to drive by you unless you're Nikola Jokic. He did take Jokic last night off an ISO. But you can still get up in Brook Lopez's grill and contest those shots. He splashed Mountain. He's not going to drive on you. We were frustrated by that. It wasn't a real physical game against the Lakers, but he was contesting shots out on the perimeter, playing good defense on LeBron and Luka when they were ISO. Like, what else more could you ask for? But offensively, we've just not seen him go for these types of games to give you something to argue about in favor of Mark. 23 points against Washington on February 3rd in a loss, but February points against Washington, that's the last time that you could point to a Mark game and say, hey, at least he gave you something offensively where he was hitting some shots to where now you can offset some of the real bad stuff that he showed. That's what he gave you last night. There were still times where Moses Brown beat him down the floor. That was frustrating a little bit later in this game. There were still times where, honestly, Doug, when Mark Williams got traded to the Lakers, and everybody's excuse for Mark's poor defense was terrible perimeter defense, this was the game to point to if you want to point to terrible perimeter defense. Like, guys were getting past their initial line of defense. Mark had to rotate off of Moses just to contend, and then nobody's helping with off Moses, and that's how Moses ended up with a nice game, man. Like, Moses Brown comes in, and he goes for, 20 points and 11 rebounds, but those 20 points were just off of dump-offs that Mark had to leave his guy and just be the last line of defense against some of the guys that were driving past initial D. So, I'm with you. There are still some issues, but look, man, this is a good thing. This is a good thing for Mark. We need to focus on the good after what was a bad start. He gave you something last night, and wipe the sweat off your forehead, man, and call it a day.
Yeah, I just wonder if Mark Williams, too, suffers from this like leaving his guy too early syndrome because the Hornets have just not been able to keep guys in front for his entire career in Charlotte. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if there's just an itchy trigger finger for help defenders in Charlotte because they've just seen drive after drive after drive, and they know they have to be early. And sometimes he gets a little too early and allows that ball handler to find his man, and then the guy that's supposed to help the helper doesn't come through. But yeah, there was an offensive rebound late that I thought he was responsible for to Moses Brown. One of the 2 offensive rebounds that they had in the fourth quarter that kept the Hornets from being able to come back in that quarter. So yeah, there were moments, but look, without Mark Williams' contributions in this game, I don't think this would have been a competitive game. You need your better players, particularly when you're without LaMelo Ball. You need your better players in Miles Bridges, who, yes, did not have an efficient night, but did get the ball in the bucket a few times. You need him to play well. You need Mark Williams to play well. And you need a few other guys to hit shots. Like, that's the formula to be competitive for the Hornets right now. And so credit to Mark Williams. He did that. And, it wasn't apocalyptic. And again, we're talking about low bars here. He cleared it.
Yeah, and no, he did though, and I don't even like the bar could not be so low that it's on the ground, and he still would have cleared it, right? Like it was still enough of a jump from Mark that we can leave this game comfortable. That there, I hate that we have to feel that way because you're sitting watching Mark Williams butt tight, just expecting a lot of the worst, continued worst, because that's just what we've seen from him for so long. But it's clearly a guy with still a lot of potential. I've told you. I want to reset for Mark. I hope he gets it this offseason with a clean bill of health. There's not this late foot injury. There's not any back injury. I think we just need a desperate reset for everybody, to be honest with you. And if Mark's not on the team, which is a real possibility, then so be it. But if he's on the team and he's going to come back in a Hornet uniform and be your starting center or a center that is looking to start, because there's going to be some competition, I have to imagine. I just want a clean bill of health, and I want a hard offseason reset for him. And we'll see what happens from there, because those are going to be when the questions are answered.
Make no mistake about it, Jeff Peterson's job gets tremendously easier if Mark Williams has a great end to this season.
Yep, no doubt. Because
you're either going to have to overpay in free agency to find some answer there, and I've looked at the free agents, and I don't think they're, unless they pull off, a miracle and get Myles Turner, but I think Indiana's going to secure that. But, other than that, like, there aren't great options. And so then you're talking about the draft where you have to essentially start over. So Jeff Peterson's job gets so much easier if Mark Williams can figure this thing out and have a good end of the season and then have a great summer and stay healthy. Mm-hmm. So cheer for that.
I will be. And just last, but maybe not least, I do love Mark Williams as a guy, man. Like, I want that guy to work out, right? You pull for these dudes who are just good human beings, and I want it to work out for Mark pretty desperately, but he's got to do it. And so far, I think what you saw last night was a step in the right direction for a guy that had not taken, I don't even know how, not one step, certainly in the last three. Lakers, I'll give them some credit, but it's just been so far and few between where we've seen positive outcomes from Mark in a game. Everywhere. We'll go through some other observations in this game, plus we'll get to the Sicko Satchel. That's still to come. Coming up next, Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Other observations from this game, Doug? You look at the box score. What do you see? You take a look at the film. What do you see? Tell the people.
KJ Simpson, 11 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, got the start in place of LaMelo Ball. I thought he had some great moments. I thought he got abused by Kyrie Irving, particularly late in this game. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
It's Kyrie, man.
KJ, I think KJ, if we're talking ceiling for KJ, if he can become the Hornets' Peyton Pritchard, I think there's an opportunity for him to become that guy who's just super Energizer Bunny off the bench. You see the way he drives the basketball with such purpose and such skill. He can light up a transition play and convert. And then if he just becomes a little bit more of a knockdown shooter from three, it was 5 of 10 from the field. What did he hit from three here? 1 of 3. So got to improve that 3-point shot. But I don't know if I'm high on KJ Simpson, but I'm certainly not low. Damian Baugh, The carriage turned into a little bit of a pumpkin for Damian Ball, particularly the shooting. I thought like the game was pretty much decided at the end of the third quarter. There was a 9-point advantage to end that third quarter for Dallas, and a lot of that was Damian Ball. It reminded me of sometimes when I play NBA 2K, sometimes I'll get cocky and I'll play really well and I'll think I can turn up the difficulty to all-star, and then I do and I can't shoot all of a sudden. Like it's just there was like a massive jump. He just couldn't shoot and made a few tried to yam on a guy and it didn't really work. So tough game for him. And then finally Moussa Diabate, again, great energy moments for him, but he got killed by Moses Brown, particularly in that end of third quarter sequence. And I'm going to keep repeating it. He's not a center. It's not fair to him in some of these matchups. And I can't wait until they put a center rotation that allows Moussa Diabate to play at a position where he can be an advantage and not a disadvantage.
So KJ Simpson, I really like him. There's still plenty there to explore, but I think what I like about KJ is he shows some finishing chops, and I think the play at the end of the first half was evidence of that. I think, man, the 6 seconds they rolled that basketball, try to get the basketball in the front court before, and then KJ, tough finish. That was a big bucket to continue to have some momentum, to be competitive, and he's not been finishing all that well at the rim, Doug, but like these aren't terrible numbers. So he actually gets to the rim quite well. He's in the 64th percentile. Mm-hmm. He doesn't finish very well, but like 36th percentile. Second round rookie, 36th percentile. Like it's not terrible, right? Like, so there's something there. It feels like maybe we could have some kind of spark, and he's getting there a lot. That's what I like, man. Just get there and then figure out what kind of angles you need to use in the NBA, how you need to use your shoulder to create some space in the NBA. Yeah, man, just go ahead and get down there and throw some shots up and explore all of that, because we need some rim pressure desperately on this team. And if Jeff Peterson found something like that in the second round, then I'll take it all day.
With any rookie, unless they're like surefire top 5 picks, with any rookie, particularly ones in the second round, it's not a given that they're going to be able to come in the NBA and find a way to get an advantage in a matchup, whether that be a defensive advantage or an offensive advantage. And we're seeing glimpses of KJ Simpson's ability to get advantages off the bounce. And that's what we're talking about here. I think that's what we're looking at. That's what we're excited about. He just has to develop that in the offseason and come back and play better in this next season. I'm like a wait and see on KJ Simpson, which is way better than a see you later.
Sure. And KJ, if you care about players that have that dog in them, he fights, man. Like he fights through screens. Like it doesn't matter if he just runs straight into the chest like a brick wall. He told you when he got drafted that he was wanting to run through a brick wall, and he's going to on some of these screens. But KJ is one of those guys I really want it to work out for him because of the attitude. There's something there, man. Like, hey, explore the rim pressure, explore that area of the floor a lot more, because you're getting there, and that's more than half the battle, to be honest with you. Just start finishing some of those. Nick Smith Jr., if you want to take a look at another young backcourt player, pretty much the exact opposite for Nick Smith Jr., right? Yeah. Like, he is not good at the rim whatsoever. He's actually one of the worst guards in the NBA, according to Cleaning the Glass. He was even worse last year. It's still true this season. So where he is he's living in the mid-range and he's living out on the perimeter. But if you can knock down some shots, then great. Like it does feel, Doug, like pretty borderline the exact opposite of what you just talked about with KJ Simpson. Nick Smith is the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, KJ trending up, NSJ, I would say trending down. Like the percentages are not good. And if he doesn't shoot the basketball better, he's going to be not living in the mid-range. He's going to be living somewhere other than Charlotte.
Yeah, there you go. Any other thoughts on this Dallas Mavericks Hornets game before we can move on and discuss some of the Sicko Satchel questions from the people?
No, I think it was a good way to end a road trip, right? Particularly one that was as miserable as this one. Like, great way. Now you get to come home. You got a big test against the Washington Wizards, who you have not been able to beat. Hopefully you get a healthier LaMelo Ball back into the lineup, and they can make something happen against the Wizards, because then they've got some tough matchups coming up at home.
All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Satchel time for the sickos. Last segment still to come. Before we answer some Sicko Satchel questions, Doug, rank radio is something you wanted to explore before we get to some of these listener questions.
Well, the Ringer is updating their NBA rankings through the season, and they did it for the first time, I think, since like early January. So I wanted to check in, and they actually give you a timeline of where these players rank. So Hornets have 2 players in the top 100. LaMelo Ball goes from 25th on January 16th all the way down to 37th. This is what Danny Chow writes. The entire site was built on the bedrock of ideas like good stats, bad team, star, and Ball has become the patron saint of that archetype. And LaMelo's ranking then feels immaterial. His talent is gleaming and irrepressible. His style, loping strides, nonchalant, one-legged recliner threes, is immediately recognizable. But more than anything, what LaMelo needs is more stable context. Ball has only played more than 51 games in a season. What if his ankles could hold up to the immense pressure he applies? His stats suggest a perennial all-star and all-NBA candidate. How might perceptions of him change if, like Devin Booker, my God, his perennial losing team were suddenly built into a contender? That Danny Chow guy can write.
He really actually can. Yeah, this was impressive because he did a story too on the Bobcats / Hornets, the Horncats, second iteration of the franchise. That was also really good. He can write. This is my whole thing. We talked about it yesterday. LaMelo, the injury history, there are plenty of reasons to think it is the best decision for this franchise to move on from him, right? I totally understand it. I'm telling you, given the situation that the Hornets are in right now, I am not wanting to move off of LaMelo. I do think of him as a really valuable asset. 25th mid-January, a month later, falling all the way down to 37th. And the only things that have changed have been the G Leaguers that have been signed mid-February that he's been throwing passes to, and he's been resting because of injury management. He was a late scratch in this game, by the way. He was added to the injury report. For those that don't know, he wasn't on the injury report at all the day before IR. Then a couple of hours before the game, he's added, and then, of course, he's out. Well, once you get the late add, it feels like you're not going to play. Yeah, I understand the fall. The Hornets don't earn the benefit of the doubt in any kind of positive ranking, and that's going to affect LaMelo as long as we see these types of rankings.
And to me, that late scratch signals that he is literally managing this injury, that his ankles are sore, and he's going to go out there and test it every single game, and it's going to be like a, Roman gladiator sort of situation where LaMelo's just going to thumbs up, thumbs down. I feel great. Let's go. I think there are going to be some structures around back-to-backs if they have any remaining the rest of the season, but I also think it's just going to be like, how do you feel? Good? Great. Get in there. Bad? All right, sit down.
It's funny you bring up the Roman gladiator because if he did do the Joaquin Phoenix thing, we would all gather around and have the same type of reaction to thumbs up, thumbs down. If you gave the thumbs up, we would all tune in. If it was a part of the pregame show, we would all tune in to see LaMelo give the Joaquin Phoenix thumbs up, thumbs down, and then we would react just like the Coliseum did.
Yeah, I don't need to say anything more about LaMelo Ball. I've gotten your angry text, your angry letters, your angry comments, but the one thing that I will say is that what makes this situation most interesting and most difficult is that the same things that you can build an argument around keeping LaMelo Ball is the same things that you could build an argument around giving him up. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what makes this whole situation difficult. And Danny Chow, he ends this whole blurb with, "It's a nightly acid trip with LaMelo, but we're still waiting for that moment of clarity." And NBA fans and NBA writers have the luxury of waiting for that moment. My whole thing is Jeff Peterson does not have that luxury. He's trying to build a team that can win as soon as possible. And if LaMelo is available, and then that helps you. But if he's unavailable, that really, because of the size of his contract, makes it very difficult. All right, finally, Brandon Miller, he's at 88. They brought him down from 78 to 88. I mean, that's all injury, dropping 10 spots. There were guys that they boosted, but Justin Verrier did the blurb, and he's still very high on Brandon Miller's potential.
Okay, those are the rankings. What Sicko Satchel questions do we have?
Yeah, let's hit up the old Sicko Satchel, which you can drop your question in if you join our Sicko Brigade. Join subtext.com/Locked On Hornets. The link is in the show notes. I'm going to end on one of the sickest things that I've ever seen. It actually didn't come in the Sicko Satchel. It was a comment that was left on a YouTube video. We'll end with that. But I want to go back to Bam Bam of the 21st Ricky Pierce division, a.k.a. the Flying Big Paper Daddies. Bam Bam asking this: could the 2025 offseason be the year we finally get Myles Turner? He's an unrestricted free agent and would immediately answer our weakness at center, stretch 5. Yes, please.
It's happened the last 5 years. It's absolutely crazy. We talk about this all the time. I think there was probably one calendar year where we didn't talk about Myles leaving the Pacers, but he was in offseason trade talks for probably 3 off seasons, not even kidding, where the Hornets were always a part of the top 3 or 4 teams that might want Myles on their squad. Is there any chance they get him? Yes, there's a chance. There's a chance that Jeff Peterson and company just say, I'm tired of messing around. We thought we had our guy in Mark Williams, and then he got injured, and we tried trading him, and we can't figure it out. And Nurkic, we have for depth, but we mostly have because of the first-round pick that Phoenix was offering up, and we already traded Nick Richards. I'm just done messing with it. Let's just pay big money, and let's go after Myles Turner to just hold it down for a few years. If you just want peace of mind and you're tired of messing around with that 5 spot, absolutely, I could see the Hornets being interested in Myles Turner.
And then do you try to hold on to Mark as a backup at that point, or do you just move on? Even if it's like a second round pick, you just move on. No, not that. Right? It's all about the price for me. I'm not just moving on from him just to move off of him. I would see what the backup stuff looks like for Mark, and if he's competitive, great, and then you can move off of him for a first round pick. But it's all about the price, to put it simply. Interesting question in the everyhornetsboxscore.com chat last night, the game chat. What's Mark's ceiling at this point? Because I think we all had ceilings for him coming out of school, and I think those ceilings, they've changed. We've done some remodeling. Do you have a player in mind? I'll give you, while you think, I'll give you my player that I answered the question with. I said I think his ceiling right now is slightly better, slightly more exciting Jakob Poeltl.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think because Jakob would give you an occasional 30-point night, but it's not going to be consistent. It's going to kind of be all over the place. It's going to be 30 sometimes, 20 sometimes, in the teens other times. But he's going to be, hopefully, the ceiling is develop into a consistent rebounder, maybe an occasional 3, but not really. And then, the passing, I think where he's better than Poeltl is in passing. So that's, where you get the sort of Poeltl plus.
Okay. Man, I'm sorry I don't have a great answer for you.
Okay.
What are the best in terms of comparisons, right? Like what's the ceiling for Mark? Yeah, I don't know, man. Like it has.
Well, here's what makes this tough. You can't really map his game onto many recent centers because of his body type versus what he does and what he doesn't do. This is what made it difficult for me. Is like finding Poeltl kind of makes sense, but it kind of doesn't. But it's tough to map his body and his game with a particular player.
Yeah, look, man, I'll say it. I want to explore some 15-foot jump shots at least. Like, Now's
the time, right?
It was right. It was there. What happened was we saw it. What was it last year? God, the timeline is so confusing. We saw it from Mark Williams, where he would take those jumpers and it looks good. The foul shooting, Doug. He's a good foul shooter. He's not even really average. Like Mark Williams, just a good foul shooter for what he is as a center.
Wish he'd get fouled more.
Yeah, and he did last night, which is nice. But let him take those set shots and not the one-handed over kind of the left shoulder push shots from 10, 13 feet out. Let's go ahead and get our shoulders square and let's take some jump shots and then let's see how far we can extend the range. Like, I don't even need you so badly to shoot threes right now. I just want people to respect giving you a little bit of space. So then there's a little bit of space for LaMelo to drive. And then if you're not going to do the roll thing, well, then you just pass it to the short corner and Mark pops in a little 15-foot jumper. Like I know Charles Lee does not want you to take mid-range jumpers. Like I totally get it. I don't know, man. I don't know in this system. I wonder if Charles Lee and Mark are ever going to be the right marriage with one another. And especially with the Mark injuries now that they continue to manage. I don't know what the ceiling is. I know that doesn't answer your question, but it's really hard for me to gauge, to be honest with you.
Well, I just don't know if there's any confidence from Mark's point of view in a shot and if there's any confidence in the coaching staff. And you need both of those things to converge to your point about their relationship. Damian Baugh said this when he first came in, like, he was like, Coach Lee gave me confidence. He wanted me to take certain shots. And we know Coach Lee has been able to convince other players to completely change their shot diet. Look at Brandon Miller. Yeah. But you need both of those things to happen at the same time. And to me, a lot of that happens not in like the game doesn't prove it. It's what you did in the offseason. It's what you did in training camp. It's what you did in preseason when you occasionally practice. Seeing the off-court stuff, that's when all of those things happen. And that's why I think we're not seeing it. I don't know if we're going to see it because I just don't know that there's like foundational level of like, I've been healthy enough to actually get out there and put enough shots up where everybody's like, if you take that, you've got a shot in hell of making it.
Yeah, and like for me, I think my ceiling, because you're right about Mark being, I don't know about unique, but certainly a rare guy. And I can't think of another example, so perhaps it is unique. But I valued Mark just being longer than everybody and also being a pretty damn good perimeter defender in terms of and compared to what he was at his size, even if it meant sacrificing that physicality and just stationary defense, not allowing your body to get moved. Because, okay, if you're going to get pushed around, that sucks. But if you can be a legit roamer where you just have so much more mobility and now your arms, you see this octopus coming at you where you can't throw passes because he's got a right arm in the passing lane and you can't shoot it because he's going to block you like Trae Young. But it's just the mobility and the athleticism at that size. I don't know how many of those guys exist. Like, yeah. In a much different way, it's Giannis, who is like leaps and bounds, different galaxies, right. More mobility, but has more mobile. But Mark had some of that. Even if you were going to get pushed around on the block, you could still like fight a little bit because of your athleticism, get out of the floor faster, and then block those shots. If he doesn't have that mobility and you don't have the just, hey, my feet are in cement, you can't move me. Now it's like, what are we doing well defensively? And that's the struggle, man. That's the struggle. So I don't know. It's frustrating because I love what Mark could have been. And maybe he still can be that. We're just not seeing it consistently now.
I think in all of that, I heard that your ceiling for Mark Williams is Doc Ock from Spider-Man. Like
that's what you heard. Yeah.
All right. Final thing here before we get out. I do want to read this comment on YouTube from Calvin Lewis 6049, who just started listing a lineup, a depth chart. Point guard, Steph Curry, Marcus Smart. Shooting guard, Brandon Miller, Josh Okogie. Small forward, Ace Bailey, etc. Power forward, Musa, Grant Williams. Center, Nurkic, Robert Williams. Wings duo on the Hornets, dem Tennessee boys. Go back to the old Hornets logo. Trade for Marcus Smart, Robert Williams reunion with Grant Williams. Trade LaMelo, Bridges, Salon, Mark Williams, Josh Green, etc. for Steph Curry and pieces.
My God.
Sickest thing I've ever seen.
I was about to say, I didn't know. You said.
You need help and we love you. You need help and we love you because you're just like us.
You said the sicko comment about the first question. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's not too crazy sick, but I guess the sickness is wrapped up in Myles Turner again. No, I knew which one was sick and needed to go to the ER immediately because of how sick it was. All right, that'll do it. Yes, we do love you, by the way. I second what Doug said. Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com, Locked On NBA. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. We appreciate you making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. Again, that includes YouTube. Have a great weekend. We'll be back with you on Monday.